Welcome everyone to the Voice of the Terminus show. I'm joined by Lex. Say hello, Lex.
What's going on, everybody?
And we have a special guest with us today, Bazgrim. Special stream as well. Saturday, unusual for us, and technically VOT are meant to be on break, but we couldn't put down an opportunity like this to sit down with Baz, who's going to talk about his time at Twitchcon and meeting up with VR and playing the game. So how this all started, basically, before we introduced Baz into this, was I put out a competition, I think back in July, August, around that time, for tickets towards the TwitchCon 2017. And Baz was a lucky winner, and he got to represent the community for Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen, and we couldn't have had anybody better represent us and get some nice information. So, Baz, hello and welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back on your show.
Ah, you're welcome, most welcome. So, let's get into it, because people are obviously here. They want to hear what you have to say. So, you finally get to the TwitchCon. What was the atmosphere like at the convention when you first got there?
So, interestingly enough, actually, this was the same exact convention center where Brad demoed EQ for the first time back in 1998, like almost 20 years ago. I think
Nice.
I think a lot of people don't realize that, and I just found that really interesting. So to be there when things kind of like came full circle for Brad, and now he's demoing Pantheon for the first time, it was really special to be there. So, but just as a convention in general, I just love the atmosphere of conventions, no matter whether it's like Gen Con or Comic Con or whatever, because like the energy is, as soon as you get there, it's just electric. That I don't know, there's just things going on in like every direction you look. There's always something interesting to see, and like, even no matter how hard you try, even if you're there for all 3 days, you can never see everything, like so even though while my main focus was on Pantheon, I did wander around a little bit just to kind of see what other cool games were out there, like hardware, art exhibits. I got to meet some other like streamers that I enjoy watching. So
Cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
yeah, I attended some of like the panels because as some of you know, I plan on streaming in the somewhat near future. So some of those panels that I went to were really helpful to kind of prepare me for that. And I don't know, just everybody's just so pleasant at conventions, because like you're all there sharing common interests, you know what I mean? So even if you meet someone that you might like disagree with about some things, at least you can always come back to talking about the games that you enjoy. You're all there because of the game. So yeah. I don't know, man, it was just
find common grounds.
Yeah, exactly, and that just makes for a really fun time.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm going to admit to a little bit of jealousy.
Yeah.
Just a little. So, what developers from Visionary Realms did you actually get a chance to meet up with?
Yeah, there was like, I think there's like 9 of them actually that were there. Oh, like, wow. So they all, yeah, but they took different shifts, so they weren't all there at the same exact time. So there was usually like 3 or 4 of them actually at the booth at any given time, but just to kind of give each other breaks, to go eat or whatever, they would kind of come in shifts. So one would come in and replace, etc., etc. So the first one that I met was Sierra, or Zinx, as most people probably know her, the VIP planner. And then she introduced me to Brad, of course. But some other people that were there were Albert, or Curapan on the forums. He's the director of technology. Ben Dean, of course, who's the director of communications, was there. And Chris Rowan, actually, who's the CEO of Visionary Realms, was also at the booth, which is really cool because you don't get to hear from him very often. See, Corey Sathos Lefevre, the senior game designer in charge of crafting, was there. David Schlow was there. He's Ronick, who is the producer of like their promotional content and that sort of thing. And Jason Bolton, or Madaki, who's the associate community manager, was also there. I think that's everybody. Hopefully I didn't.
I'm surprised you actually memorized all the names. I still have a hard time even pronouncing half of them.
Yeah.
I had to kind of think about it a little bit, but everybody's really friendly, really welcoming. Like I was admittedly at first a little starstruck, especially when I met Brad.
That's my term. You can't use that. You can't use that's my term, okay? I own that.
But to be honest though, like by the end of the weekend, personally, I don't know, I just kind of felt like I was part of the family to a degree. Like they just took me right in. It was really nice.
So a very welcoming bunch of people.
Yeah, definitely.
Very nice. So you mentioned in your first vlog, which I'll link in a bit, the 3 video logs that you did, that they are promoting a new streaming program coming. Did you get any information about that? It might be interesting for people who plan to stream.
Yeah. So Twitch has already been a really good way to give Pantheon some more exposure, like especially through Co-Carnage and all that. So of course, Twitchcon is a logical place for them to connect with even more streamers to help get the game more exposure. Because that's kind of at the stage where they're at now, where they want to start getting the word out even more. So they had some signs and some flyers and stuff that were out to talk to streamers about this program that they have going on, which will begin sometime next year in 2018. I don't know when exactly, but it'll definitely be before launch, because so the game kind of has to be more done understandably. You want to have something pretty good if you're going to let streamers stream it. It's got to be pretty done. So my personal guess would be that it's sometime in beta, but that's just my own speculation, so we'll see. But so anyway, so streamers that get selected for this program will be able to play either on their own independently, or you can set up like these guided sessions and have the developers come on your stream and group up with you and play the game with you. See, they'll also be like, VR will be giving streamers some like access keys, like beta access keys or something like that, to do for like giveaways. You can do dev interviews, and the other thing that they mentioned were these streamer only pre-launch challenges and championships. That's a lot of air quotes, but yeah, these challenges and championships, which I couldn't really get any more info on, but it sounds really interesting to me.
It almost to me sounds like it could be a case of you get 2 streamers in 2 different groups, have them race to like a boss or something.
Yeah, I would love that. That's
pure speculation.
I would love that sort of thing. I love competitions and stuff, so that would be awesome. So anyway, if anybody out there is a streamer and is interested in taking part of this, all you have to do is send a note to Ben Dean, the director of communications. Just let him know that you're interested. Send him like your channel information, and they'll get back to you when we get to that point in 2018. And his email is ben@visionaryrealms.com.
Nice. Yep, interesting times are coming.
Yeah. I'm actually writing that one down because I am a little bit of a streamer, though I don't think I'll honestly make it in there.
It's worth noting though that Zinx told me that like you don't necessarily have to be like a Co-Carnage level streamer to get accepted into this program. Like it's not like part of it too, I guess, would be for up and coming streamers to help build their channel too. It's a little bit of a give and take in that. It's like you don't like you shouldn't feel.
There any mention about possibly if the streams should be PG or if mature streams were acceptable? Because for myself, I am extremely mature. I curse like a sailor.
That's all totally up to Ben Dean. I don't know about that. It's all at his discretion. So obviously not everybody's going to get accepted, and it's also worth noting that even if you do get accepted, like it's not like everybody will always be able to interview the devs, because the devs only have so much time. Right. You know what I mean? So
busy people.
So you might be allowed to stream the game, but there might be certain things that you might not be included in, like the dev interviews, or if they only have a certain amount of access keys, you're not guaranteed any of those things. Right. But yeah, you shouldn't feel that like, oh, I only have this many viewers, there's no way like I'll get accepted. Like it doesn't hurt to apply, you know what I mean? And then it's just kind of up to Ben Dean who he thinks might be best to do it.
Yeah, the only way you don't have a chance is if you don't send in an email.
Yep.
That's true.
So while you're at TwitchCon, you kind of attended the very first Pantheon. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, like you use air quotes, and because at the time I wasn't even aware that it was a Pantheon. I didn't go into it like thinking, I'm on my way to Pantheon. Like they didn't use that term to advertise it. Because it was actually on Saturday night, and it was the same night when TwitchCon was having their like massive Halloween party at the Queen Mary, which was like packed. And so you have that, and then you have us just down the road with kind of this more like intimate gathering, you know what I mean? We were at the Beer Belly in Long Beach, and we just kind of had the back room to ourselves, and we were there for probably like 4 hours or so, I'd say, just chatting, just drinking beer, eating appetizers, having fun, just talking about Pantheon. So yeah, it was really fun. Like it's exciting though now that I'm home and realize, oh, that was a Pantheon, or they're calling it a Pantheon, now to kind of like look ahead to the future where hopefully this becomes maybe like an annual thing, maybe like hopefully there'll be a lot more of that sort of thing in the future, and it will continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger, especially like after launch, when there's that many more people playing the game. And you might have something like the EQ fanfare where you could even have like hundreds of people all joining up. So I think it'll be kind of fun when we get to that point to then look back, at the very first one, when it was just, we had maybe like, I don't know, like 20, 25 people total just kind of crammed into this back room, just hanging out. It was super casual. So it'll be kind of fun to when we these things get bigger, to kind of look back to where it all started and see how far things have come.
And the thing is as well, to see it on a more global level, there's definitely a lot of people from all over the world who are definitely in favour of Pantheon. And hopefully it does become something that can be appreciated all over the world, where people from all different kinds of countries can get behind it and, make it a global event, be it in the US, be it in Europe, be it maybe in Australia and so forth. I can't wait to see how this all expands over time.
Yeah, I totally agree, because it's really kind of like, it's at the core of what Pantheon's all about, you know what I mean? Pantheon's about community. It's a community-based game, so it seems logical that, you're going to make these friends in-game, and, the next step would be then to, meet with them in person, hang out with them, and continue to facilitate those relationships. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, can you imagine if, like, if people start running from other countries their own little personal Pantheons, just little fan get-togethers, if they actually coordinated them all to one day a year, and you actually had they stream it, you can sit there, so you can actually kind of take part in it in a fashion, and then you got like International Pantheon Day.
Hey, we could also, just go one further. VR, rent a private jet, a bigger private jet that goes around the globe and, picks everybody up, and we just fly around in an airplane.
Good luck parking that on my street. That's all I'm gonna say. So the first words coming out of my mouth: "Get that out of my yard." Also, hooray!
Definitely.
Yeah. So while you were at the Pantheon, did you happen to meet any other prominent community members that we might know?
I did, yeah. There was a few people I met whose forum names I recognized. It's kind of funny. It's like you meet somebody and you shake your hand and they could be anyone, but then you ask them, what's your name on the forums, and then they tell you, and and then suddenly you're like best friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go for handshaking and you just hug them. You're just like, it's you. It's finally you.
Yeah. So it was nice to put a face to some of the names. So let's see. I met Jazara. I met Derp, who's on the forums a lot. I met Dragon Fist. I met Pi too, who was the other one. And actually, Pi was nice enough to walk with me back to my car at like 1:30 in the morning, because we had parked pretty close to each other. So that was really cool. Thanks, Pi. But yeah, no, everybody was just really, really pleasant, and I made some new friends as well too. Like there was, maybe some people that they said they had just kind of been lurking on the forum, so I didn't really recognize their name. Or there was also, I think, some people that had just heard about the game at Twitchcon, and they just loved it so much right away that they just automatically jumped right on board. Like Madaki would just invite them, hey, come on over, come on over to the beer belly. And so yeah, it was really cool to see so many people from all over that and that you don't know, just all really passionate and just getting together talking about Pantheon.
Definitely.
And it's actually kind of funny because that's what a lot of, me, for instance, a lot of us older MMOs that we're really craving from Pantheon is the ability to get out there and kind of make some more friends, That's really what it's all about.
Because we know how hard that is being a gamer, making new friends, especially in real life. So,
yeah, a lot of people, they'll say, that they like to stick to their static groups, you know what I mean? If you're in the game and you have the same 5 or 6 people that you play with, and those are the only people, you don't do pugs, you only play with those 5 or 6 people day in and day out, which is really good because you can, you get really close to those people, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's definitely good to kind of, if maybe those friends can't log on, just go and try to just meet somebody new.
I mean, it reminds me of my, when I first started playing EverQuest too. I think it was the first week or so. TeamSpeak wasn't so popular back then. It just barely came into the mix, and I grouped up with a few people. I think I was in Enchanted Lands. I grouped up with some people, and then they were talking about voice programs. We got into TeamSpeak, and all of a sudden, a bunch of strangers became friends. A matter of an hour of playing together. Let's go and chat, and then that's how you build your friendships. And yeah, cool. So anyway, you had the chance. You had the chance to sit down with Brad and talk one-on-one. What did he talk about?
So it was getting pretty late toward the end of the night, and I was thinking about leaving. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because Brad just called me over to the bar and just asked, how things were going, how my weekend was going, and we just got to talking, because obviously, he was talking about how thrilled he was to see people all together in real life in one place, just because of Pantheon, because of his creation, and just kind of seeing things all just come to fruition. He talked about how the convention, even at that point, had already been like a huge success. It exceeded their expectations as far as what they wanted to get done. They accomplished a lot. It was really well received. Like I noticed that the crowd at the booth would get bigger every day. You know what I mean? So it's like, seems like there was kind of like a word of mouth thing going on, you know, like it was just great. It was great to see the game getting that much exposure. And obviously, you know, Brad was just thrilled with how everything went over. So I asked him, like, if from getting to where they started off like 3 or 4 years ago to now, where they're at now, did it feel like a really long and like difficult and agonizing journey, or if they had just kind of stayed focused and in the zone and that time has just flown by, you know what I mean? And he said that the really early days were definitely rough, and that's not surprising because any startup is hard. You know, there's days when he just didn't even know if it was going to happen. You know, the Kickstarter failed, so it was really rocky there for a while. And it's hard to be in the zone when things like that are happening. But he said lately, though, they've been able to kind of get in more of a rhythm and gain some momentum. And so now, you know, from their perspective, time is actually going by pretty fast for them, which is good. That's fun when you can really like you get that focus and you just start getting things done. But you know, he talked about how just important it is to have that tenacity, you know, when things just seem impossible and things are really difficult, and just being plain old stubborn, you know what I mean? Sometimes that's the only way to make sure that things get done. And when he said that, I was like, Brad, like I couldn't agree more. And the way I learned my sense of tenacity was from EverQuest. Like, I was like, I don't know if you realize this, but like I started playing EQ when I was 6 years old. And the things that you learn when you're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, those things stick with you. And it's no surprise that grinding was a big part of EQ. That's just a well-known fact. There's a lot more to it than that. But a lot of times, if you wanted to complete a quest, or if you just wanted to get a particular item or whatever, you're going to have to do some grinding. And it's probably not going to be fun all the time, and it's probably going to feel like you're never going to complete whatever it is you're trying to complete. But if you want something bad enough, you're going to do whatever it takes, no matter how long it takes, even if it's not fun, you know what I mean? And that was a really big takeaway lesson from EQ for me. You know, you can apply those principles to other things in real life. So that's where I think that's a large part of where I got my tenacity from. And so I told him that, and he's like, huh. He's like, I never thought about it that way. And my brain like exploded. Like the fact, like, I mean, like the fact that I was able to tell Brad something that he had like never thought about, you know, about EverQuest in like the past 20 years or whatever. Now don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting, I'm not like telling him that Pantheon should be wicked grindy or whatever, or anything like that. But I think a little bit of grind can be healthy. And he was like, I'll have to use that next time somebody tells me that grinding is useless. So
it's useful for a life lesson.
See, there you go. You just gotta look at it that way. So yeah, we didn't really talk. We didn't talk like all night or anything. But it was really satisfying to be able to just sit down and just talk with him like man to man. Like last time I was on your show, you know, you had asked me of all the people on the VR team who I would want to have dinner with the most if I could. And I told you Brad, and at that time I had no hope or dream of that ever actually happen. I didn't think that was actually going to happen. So then when I'm sitting there like face to face with him, it was was a little surreal at first, but yeah, it was. I don't know. That was just really, it was really memorable, and especially since it seems like it wasn't it wasn't just me talking to him. It seems like he kind of got something out of it too. So
yeah,
definitely cool. So let's get into the stuff that everybody really wants to talk about here. Okay, so for all of you out there, you might not know this, but Bazgrim was the first person out of the Pantheon community to play Pantheon at Twitchcon and to play Pantheon for the first time, period. So tell us, what was it like? what was it like? How did it feel? What can you tell us, man?
and all I'm gonna say is, if you say unfinished, it wasn't good, I'm throwing something at my computer.
Wouldn't that be so disappointing though? If I like traveled all the way across the country to get there and sit down and be like, this game sucks. Like, but fortunately that didn't happen. I feel like though, before I get into details, I should give the obligatory disclaimer that anything that I say only describes the current state of the demo build. They had a specific demo build there for TwitchCon just to show off the game. So obviously some things that
subject to change.
They're all subject to change. They might change even in between now and pre-alpha, or they'll certainly change in between now and launch. So I don't want to say something like tentative and have somebody be like, they are lying to me, and then just like quit the game.
Basically, take this as a grain of salt.
Take it with a grain of salt. But I think it is important that people should know what the current state of the game is, because the streams intentionally do a really good job of showcasing the parts of the world that are more complete. And I can tell you from firsthand that those parts are real. They exist in the world and you can run to them. It's not like the smoke and mirrors that some games do. I don't think any of us actually expected that would be the case, but EverQuest Next comes to mind, where they'll set up like a really small stage and it'll almost be like a theatrical play, you know what I mean? And it looks really good when you're viewing it how it's intended to be viewed. But as soon as you kind of pull back that proverbial curtain, then there's like nothing there. You know what I mean?
It's like
sticks.
It's like Star Trek's Hollow Room.
Yes.
Boom.
Yeah.
Even in the case of EQN, when it was like first showcased at SOE Live, I'm pretty sure somebody figured out that there were actually devs backstage controlling the mobs because they hadn't even programmed AI yet. You know what I mean? So it was good to have the freedom to just demo Pantheon myself, because I can tell you that there was none of that crap going on. They pretty much just let me roam around free, go wherever I wanted to go. So I was really able to again peek behind that proverbial curtain. And in general, what I saw was a very big world that's very beautiful. It's just there are parts of it that are obviously not done yet, and that's to be expected. You know what I mean? So in between those polished areas that we see in the streams, there's some areas that just need more time. Like there's nothing wrong with that. They just need more time.
No.
I feel like psychologically.
It's not a complete version yet, so.
Yeah,
if it was ready to go, it'd be released.
Yeah, I exactly. Like I didn't go into it with those expectations, and I think it's important that other people. Brad just in the VIP forum, Brad posted something recently about managing expectations and how important that is when you go into pre-alpha.
Yeah.
I'll get to that a little bit later. Because psychologically, I feel like it's easy for a lot of people to you watch these streams, and you see how it looks better than most games that are released. You know what I mean? And subconsciously, you think like, oh well, if this part of the game looks that good, then the rest of the game must look that good too. But realistically, I'm not saying everybody thinks that, but I think there's some people that think that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's just not the case. Not yet anyway. Because like handcrafted content, everything's made by hand, and that just takes a ton of just sheer man hours. So I guess an example that I came across with was that you'd come across a house, you know, on the side of the road or whatever, and like, oh, that's intriguing, you know, and you go inside the house and there's just nothing there. It's obvious that there will be something there someday, but it's just not in there yet. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to be able to tell that the world isn't done yet. So you can kind of, it's a little bit more forgiving in that way. But in my opinion, the bottom line is that there's definitely enough there that's ready to test. You know, like it's playable, it's fun, it's stable, and I think that's all that we can really hope for at this point.
Yeah.
I think the part that was most significant to me was that anytime when I was done playing, I would want to play more. So me and my brother and his wife have been designing and testing board games for quite a while now, and I understand that there's a big difference between making a board game and making a video game, but I think the process of testing them is fundamentally the same. And so when we're testing these board games, if at the end of like an hour-long session, you feel like, yeah, that was a fun game, but I don't really feel the need to play it anytime again soon, you just put it on the shelf. You're probably going to want to take a step back and reevaluate the game.
Right.
But if on the other hand...
Yeah, which is kind of where, in my opinion, most MMOs out right now, that's where they're at.
Agreed. Definitely.
There's just only so much satisfaction up there that they can give, and then they stop.
Yep. Yeah. Because on the other hand, if you want to keep playing that board game or video game or whatever it is, if you want to keep playing again and again and again to try to figure out those new strategies or just explore or whatever, then you know that you've got a good game on your hands. And it may not be done, may not be polished or even balanced, but at least you know that you're like onto something good. And like I said, that's how basically Pantheon felt to me. Because there was definitely something about it that just makes you want to keep exploring the world, even though it's not done. So again, suffice to say that it was not disappointing.
Which is the main thing that most of us here right now wanted to know.
Exactly. If you get nothing else out of this, you can know that I was not disappointed. Because I feel like VR accomplished their goal of just setting a solid foundation on which they can now start fleshing out the more really cool, unique stuff. Because of course I encountered a few bugs, although not as many as I thought I was going to, and they weren't game-breaking bugs. Because like the entire time that I was playing the game, not once did I get stuck or fall through the world. And I think that's a big deal.
That's huge.
So it seems like most of what's left to do is just fill out the rest of the world with those NPCs and those objects and quality of life features, etc., etc. Like, despite a couple of hiccups that they had in that last live stream, I did actually think that the server and the client were actually pretty stable. I didn't experience any lag. I DC'd once in probably like the 4 or so hours that I was playing. And I'm pretty sure that was like an internet issue and not like a server or client issue. Because let's just be honest, the Twitchcon internet is not the most reliable. So things definitely seem stable enough to do that pre-alpha testing. So yeah, it gave me a good sense of context for like why they've been doing things the way they've been doing. Like it's one thing for them to just tell you, but when you see for yourself, it's like, oh, you know, this makes so much more sense. Like why they're being so careful about making sure that the game is ready enough for them to be able to get the most out of pre-alpha testing. So when I get into the game, I wasn't like, wow, I could have been testing this a long time ago. You know what I mean? Like it feels like it's where it should be at this stage. Because in the grand scheme of things, pre-alpha is still really early on. You know, there's a lot more that's to come, obviously.
Still in the process of being made.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's still really early on. And when you guys, when we get into pre-alpha, that'll be evident. But it is also very evident that they're off to like a great start. So anyway, that's a little bit of a rabbit trail, but I feel like it's worth saying.
I do have one question about your gameplay experience.
Yeah.
When you were standing there in the world, did you lose yourself in the environment and kind of just lose yourself in the whole game experience?
So let me tell you how this all went down. So I'm going to the Pantheon booth at TwitchCon. I spot Zinx's blue hair from a distance, so I know I'm going in the right direction. And I introduce myself to her. She introduces me to Brad. Brad shakes my hand right away. And he's like, "You want to play?" And I was like, like, do I even need to answer that? Like, so he just like, he throws me in the chair, says, "All right, I'm going to let you figure it out on your own." Which is a good idea, by the way, to figure out how intuitive things are if you've never played the game before. I think that's really crucial. But then he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're also demoing it on the big screen for everybody else around you. No pressure." And I was like, okay. So they started me off in Thronefast just to kind of get a feel for the controls, which didn't take me that long to get a feel for the controls, and that is also a very good thing. There were a few of the default keybinds that were not really what I was used to, but you can go into those option menu and reassign the keybinds, so it really wasn't that big of a deal. So that was good. But then, to answer your question, Lex, as soon as I got a feel for the controls, I was off and running, just having a blast. And I could feel myself getting sucked into that world. I couldn't tell if it was because I was at TwitchCon sitting next to Brad and everything just kind of felt really like surreal. Like it's really, it's hard to describe. But because like I wasn't thinking analytically about the game at the time. I didn't.
Oh no.
No, like I didn't sit down with like my notepad and start like writing every little thing down. It wasn't until later I was like, oh crap, I should probably like be paying attention to what's going on here, because like I'm gonna have to recount this to people that want to know about it. But I think actually, now that I think about it, that's an important approach that people should have when it gets to pre-alpha. Convo, one of the testers at VR, talked about this a little bit on the forums, that so when you go into pre-alpha, try to resist the urge of just coming in like with all guns blazing, trying to like instantly like dissect everything and exploit every aspect of the game. Like first you should take just a little while to just see how the game just feels naturally. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it's hard to put that into words. But like I was saying, how Brad said, it's really important to know how intuitive the game is, without being given any instructions. So like just what your initial first impressions are.
That's
very important, how intuitive. Like for instance, your user interface is, simply because if there's a new player, say from another game or who's new to the genre completely, if your UI isn't all that intuitive and it's kind of rough around the edges, it's going to scare you off. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just the way it is.
It's mostly the most important thing when you start out in a new game. It doesn't matter what it is. If that first experience of, logging into the game, getting through the intro, whatever there is, and then standing there with your character, and then you're just so overwhelmed or confused, that's an experience that they definitely will want to hear. Where are the problems? What difficulties are there? Where did you originally come from? What gaming experience do you have? This is vital information for them, and Brad's right to say that, and it's very important to note that we all come from different backgrounds, and even the old school hardcore people. You know, the people from EverQuest as well. It's most probably going to be a slightly different experience for them compared to what, you know, EverQuest was like as well. So, you know, balance it out.
Yeah, like that's more important than the bug reports. Like, I feel like people, they think of pre-alpha and they're like, okay, we're just gonna go and we're just gonna find bugs. You know what I mean? But there's just so much more to it.
That is a part of it.
It's absolutely, it's an important part.
Yep.
But before you get to that, just see how the game feels. And that's what I did. I didn't even have time to think about, you know, bugs or, you know, doing number crunching or whatever. It's because like I said, once I like reassigned a few of my keybinds, and it all felt very fluid. So yeah, again, to answer your question, absolutely. And it didn't even take me that long. Maybe I'd say within like 5 or 10 minutes. Everything felt very smooth and very very comfortable. Like I was definitely just in the world. And
you could feel it
doing.
seeping into your pores.
Yeah, definitely. You know, like it's tough too because again, I'm demoing the game too on a big screen for a lot of other people. So there's just like so much going on. It'll be different when
no rookie mistakes. No rookie mistakes.
I know, right? It'll be different when I'm actually at home and there's no schedule, there's nobody watching, and I can take my time and you know, really just do my thing, because when I'm there, I'm like, part of me is like, oh, I have to be impressive, I have to make the game look good, you know, use big AoEs, all this sorts of stuff just to grab people's attention, you know what I mean? I have to always be doing something, I have to make it look exciting, you know, or whatever, like, but yeah, I definitely got enough of that hint of like, this is a world that I want to keep exploring, because my mind was there in the world very quickly, and so that's the immersion that everybody talks about, and it's definitely there, so we can all just have a collective sigh of relief.
Cigarette in the towel. Well, there's actually a pretty important question.
We'll do that later.
I don't know if he's going to be able to answer that day.
Yeah,
but
we'll do that. We'll do that afterwards. We'll have chat, bring up some questions that they might want to ask, and then we'll see what Baz can answer and what.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, at the end we could do a little bit of Q&A. I'm trying to just recite as much as I can remember from that entire weekend. So there's probably, you know, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to answer every question because there's still a lot that I don't know. But yeah, we'll do a little Q&A at the end. That'd be good.
So if you have questions, folks, go ahead, throw them in chat. I will do my best to keep up with them, and if I miss one or two, I apologize ahead of time.
Yeah, I'm not really looking at chat a whole lot right now, but once we get to the end, we'll see what we can do. I'll try my best.
So come on, Baz. There's got to be more. More about what you witnessed. People want to hear it.
Yeah. All right. So I'll try to break things down a little bit more.
Well, how about this? Out of your short gameplay experience, was there something in the world that really kind of struck awe into you?
That's a good question. Yes. So when I was roaming around through Thronefast, just kind of getting a feel for things again, like just I was way higher level than that area, so it was really easy, and I wasn't really worried about anything doing any real damage to me. So I'm just like one hitting everything, just having a blast. So I came to that archway that we've seen in a few of the streams that's just outside of Thronefast. And I don't know what it is about that. Even though I've already seen that that archway a lot, seeing it like in game was that was really, really cool, because there's something about that's always just drawn me to that archway. So, and Thronefast itself is just gorgeous. And so anyway, that actually reminds me. So when you go through that archway toward Thronefast, and you can see Thronefast in all its glory, I would say that is an awe-inspiring moment, because that's like, you can, like I said, you can see it in screenshots and it looks gorgeous in screenshots, but it's even better in game. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like, that's another one of those just feel good moments. You know what I mean?
One of those moments where it's like, you have to see it in person, although it's
Yeah.
virtually in person.
Yeah, virtual reality. Yeah. Like, yeah, the pictures just don't do it justice. So anyway, here's something interesting. So when you go through that archway and you take a right, you go down a hill, you come across this bridge, and and
it's on the screen. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. We've seen this bridge before. On what you can't really see though is on the left side of this screen, there's a tower. At the end of the bridge, there's a tower, and there's a couple guards at the bottom. There's an NPC at the bottom, just outside the tower. And I went up and just hailed the NPC because that felt like the right thing to do. You know what I mean?
EQ much?
Right. And well, that was when I realized, as somebody who's played a lot of EQ, that's when I was like, I felt right at home, because it was one of those intuitive things where I click on it and I press H, because that's how it is in EQ, and that hails them. And it did exactly what I expected it to do, which is a good feeling. It seems like a really minor thing, but it's really satisfying when something does as you expect it to do in a game. You know what I mean? So, even better was that, so when the text comes up from this guy, and I see little words that are highlighted in blue, in what he's saying, and so I do a /say, and then whatever one of the words that's highlighted is, and that progresses the dialogue. I'm like, oh, this is like EQ. So interacting with quest NPCs, at least to some degree, at this point, just in the current iteration of the demo version, it's pretty much exactly like EQ. There's not the brackets, but it's highlighted that it's obvious what you should say back to the
Draws
NPC.
your attention to these are important words.
Yes, to continue the story. So that guy at the tower, something about he needed a vial of water from some magical pond. Okay, and so I said sure, obviously. So he gives me the vial, and he said the name of the pond or whatever that I don't remember what it was. So he gave me the vial, and another intuitive thing is that I pressed J, because that's what I was expecting a quest journal to bring up, and it did, and that's another satisfying thing. So it was about what you would expect of a quest journal. Kind of reminds you who you talk to, what he wants, where to bring it, that sort of thing. And then the next thing, without even thinking about it, I still can't believe I did it. I went and pressed M, expecting it to bring up my map. Out of so much habit. Like, it's such a habit after all these games. I was like, oh, M for map. And then when I pressed M and nothing happened, like, the biggest smile came across my face when I was like, oh, yeah, there is no map. And, like, I have the name of this pond, but I have no idea where it is. And so that's kind of when it's one of those things where, like, okay, well, I'll hold on to this file and, see, hopefully I come across something later. And that kind of begins the adventure. So I was there. I went inside the tower. I climbed all the way to the top. It's like a really tall tower. At the top, it was really well decorated. It almost kind of reminded me of the Tower of the Reckless Magician. Like, there's lots of all sorts of like little trinkets and stuff. Like somebody had put some serious time into decorating that room. There was no NPCs or really anything to interact with up there. But Albert, the director of technology, told me that of course there would be at some point. So it's another one of those things where it's like, yeah, this is really cool. You can look at all the different things that are on the bookshelves and the table and stuff. And it's immersive to a degree, but then it's also obvious that it's just not done yet, but that's okay. So let's see what else. So I go toward that bridge, and there's a couple guards at the end of the bridge, and I hail them. They don't really say anything. So I keep going across the bridge, and there's another NPC that kind of like halfway across the bridge on that little platform there. There's this just plain looking fellow next to, he has a cart that's on the bridge. And I talked to him, and he's talking about how he's a merchant, and his cart broke down because like one of the wheels of his cart broke, and so now he's trying to make this delivery, and it needs to be delivered by a certain time, and now he can't make it because his cart broke down, etc., etc. So he's asking for my help. So again, of course, I'm like, sure. And this was an even more interesting thing that happened, is that when I'm talking to him, I realize that there's multiple ways that I can complete this quest. It's not just like you just zip through all the highlighted words, get to the end of the quest, and it's like linear, like step 1, step 2, step 2, step 3, step 4, etc. Because when I was reading things, I realized he gave me options. So he says you can either take this bag of seed, I think it was, and deliver it for me. And he told me where the farm was that he needed to deliver it to. And another interesting thing about that, again, it's subtle, but I think it's important, that he told me like who the person was and what direction to go. So even without a map, at least he pointed me in the right direction. He said, "Oh, it's just north." He said, "It's a long walk, but it's north of Thronefast." And so at that point, I was like, okay, even without a map, all I need to do is hopefully just jump back on the road. I have my compass, point my compass north, and then just keep walking and see what I find. So that's one option. But the other really cool option was that he said, so you can do that, or you can craft me a new wheel for my wagon.
Oh, I like that.
So yeah, so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So
kind of offering, it's kind of interacting with both parties of the game. Those that want to craft, those that want to do the adventuring part. That's actually pretty intuitive and unique.
Yeah, and it made so much sense, like in the story. Like it didn't feel out of place, but yet you're appealing to, okay, do you want the adventure side of things, or are you more of a crafter, and do you want to go that route of things? And so you can just go back to town and just there's got to be some way to craft a wagon wheel, and you bring the wagon wheel back to him, and he slaps it on his cart, and then he's on his way, and then that's another way to complete the quest. Like you reach the same end goal through two different paths. You know what I mean? I thought that I hope that we see a lot more of that sort of thing. I think we will, because I thought that was really cool. That definitely stuck out to me, where it's like I can't really think of another game that I've played that's had stuff like that. So, but just at this point, I knew that crafting wasn't really complete in the game yet. So that for right now, I just didn't want to go that route. So I told him, all right, I'll take the seed up north. So he hands me the bag of seed. And I, like I said, I just jumped on the road and pointed my compass north and just headed that way and just see what I could find. You know what I mean? And it was a little bit of a run, but again, I think that's a good thing, that it takes time to reach where you're trying to go. It wasn't terribly long, but it was a nice scenic walk down the road, and then eventually I came across
what looked like a farm. And again, without even really being told a whole lot, I kind of figured, oh, this must be, you know, where I need to go. You see like a little farmhouse and there's crops out in front, that sort of thing. And so I go inside, and it was one of those cases where you go up to a house and there's like nothing in it. I was like, oh, I don't think, you know, I don't think this quest has been fully like, you know, developed yet, but that's okay. But so I gotta assume that that's where I should have gone, maybe not. But but it was still good to kind of like follow the steps through that and see a little bit of what the questing will be like. I actually didn't encounter like the perception system. Like there wasn't any of those pop-ups when I got close to any of those NPCs that triggered perception. I don't, maybe that will just come later. You know, maybe they just haven't plugged it in yet, or I don't know. Maybe that's just not applicable for all quests. Although I'm pretty sure Joppa said that the questing system and perception is hand in hand. So I'm gonna guess that it just wasn't developed yet. So yeah, that was Thronefast. Had a lot of fun at Thronefast. But eventually, of course, I wanted a little bit more of a challenge. Like at that point, I was just kind of like one-hitting everything, just seeing what my spells did, getting a feel for the controls, again, kind of talking to some NPCs, just seeing what that's like. But eventually, I'm like, all right, I want to kill something. You know what I mean? Like,
I want a real fight.
I want a good old-fashioned fight. So we popped over to Hellnook Caves, which again is another one that we've seen a lot in the streams. And that is another awesome zone that's way better when you're actually playing it than just watching it. So I got to experience some more full-length fights there. And it was a good challenge. Now again, like, because this was a demo version, I didn't really have all like the level appropriate gear, the spells and everything. So again, just a reminder, take everything I say with a grain of salt, because especially when it comes to combat balance, don't take it too literally, because it's not exactly even how like things will be like in pre-alpha. But I felt like it was a good proof of concept. Like with a group of, I think 3 to 4 people, like it was me and Brad. We had 2 computers at the booth, but there were also some other developers that were playing with us from home just to kind of fill out the group. And we were plugging along, usually handling like 1 or 2 mobs at a time, no problem. Doing the classic, you know, pulling strategy, everybody playing their roles, which was good to see in person. And there was one fight where we kind of got ourselves in trouble, which was also kind of fun. Like all these things you hear about, you know, that they're saying are going to be important to the game, like being aware of your surrounding, and it's going to be tough, and if you make a mistake, it's going to punish you. So even though like it kind of sucks when you make a mistake and get punished in the game, just seeing the game do what it's supposed to do is just it was fun to experience. So I don't know how we got ourselves into this bad situation, but we're starting to get overwhelmed with like 3, 4, 5 mobs or something. And it's looking like we're not gonna make it. And
did you have Coulson in the group?
No, actually, thank God.
That would explain it otherwise.
There? No, thank God. Oh, gee, that was perfect.
No, no, we were able to buckle down. That was another one of those moments where it's like I forgot where I was. I forgot that I was at Twitchcon, for a moment, which is hard to do, and it was like my entire focus was on the game and playing my role and just trying to survive this fight. You know what I mean? And we did, and we got it done. And that was that. Like those are the sorts of moments that make these types of games so memorable, when you think that you're gonna wipe, but everybody just like it just clicks into place, and you just all do your jobs really well, and you get it done, and you finally take down that last mob, and everybody's really excited. It's just really satisfying and really relieving. So to be able to do that with Brad was awesome. So speaking of Hellnook Caves, oh, you got the picture up already. So in this picture, we came across this ramp, which we've seen in the streams and in the screenshots and stuff, of course. Again, it was another one of those things where when you're seeing it in person, again, I can't stress that enough. When you see these things in person, it's really, really cool. So we come across this bridge, and when you take a right at the end of the bridge, you kind of head toward, you see that there's like this little torch that's right in the middle of that screenshot, that faint orange light right in the middle. Right when you get to that point, it's hard to kind of tell in the screenshot, but there's actually a ramp that goes down. And it allows you to go into this like cavern that's underneath the bridge where all that mist is coming from, that green mist. And so you can actually walk down under there. And although not for very long, because it's a nasty place. You're not going to be walking for long, but until you get jumped by these ghouls and these like armored skeletons that are just fierce. But that was really cool. That was probably the first place that I stumbled upon that I was like, oh, I've never seen this. Nobody's ever seen this, area before, and see all the new character models. Like, I wish I would have been able to like take a picture of them or something, because the ghouls looked really cool. They're not like EverQuest ghouls, but they look awesome, and so you have to see for yourself. So when you get to this bridge, someday when we get to that, probably in pre-alpha, when we get to Hellnook Cave and you come across this bridge, you remember, Baz said to take a right.
Oh, you gotta rub that in, don't you?
Baz said take a right and go down that ramp, and you'll see all those skeletons and stuff down there. And those were tough, but that was a fun area to fight in. So again, because we're just demoing the game, we did kind of bounce around a little bit. So once we were done fighting in Hellnook Caves for a little bit, we went to some other places, like went to South Sail, went to Tower of the Reckless Magician. And didn't go to any entirely new zones that we hadn't already seen in the stream, because these are just the places that are most complete. Personally, I hesitate to even guess, but these are probably the places that we'll be testing in pre-alpha first, because I think they're the most ready.
Yeah, let's face it. When you go to a big convention like Twitchcon, you don't want to show a half-finished zone or a zone that could potentially have a lot of issues. You want to go with the ones you've been shown, because they're likely to have less issues.
And plus, you don't want to reveal too much of the game as well.
Right.
Yeah. You want to keep some of it a mystery, So, so we went to we went to Amderphade. Amderphade was another one that I had seen before, but again, awesome zone. So when we got to Amderphade, Brad suggested that we turn aggro off and just start climbing and just see how far we could get before we fell and died. I'm down,
Well, let's do it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so elaborate on that a bit though as well, because that's another unique thing for Pantheon, is this climbing ability that we were introduced to in Amderphade. So elaborate a bit more on that as well, please.
Yeah.
What did it feel like?
It's kind of one of those things where it's, in my opinion anyway, it's part of player versus environment. You know what I mean? It's more than mobs. It's even more than just the climate system. It's that also, to progress through the environment, there's physical obstacles that you need to jump over and that sort of thing. I think that's an important part of player versus environment. You don't just get to walk on a totally flat surface. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So to climb, it's not always obvious what surfaces are climbable and which ones aren't. You kind of just gotta throw yourself at a rock.
Throw yourself against the wall. Just
throw yourself.
Oh my god!
And but your character will automatically latch on, and that's when you kind of know, okay, I'm going in the right direction. I'm going in an area that's intended to be climbed. You know what I mean? And so you latch on, you can hang there indefinitely. But then all you have to do is hit W again, just the forward key, obviously, and then that will pull you up on top of the ledge, and then you can keep running. So I didn't actually, we're climbing up there, and I didn't actually fall as often as I was expecting to. But I definitely had to focus. But personally, I have a lot of experience with like jumping puzzles and stuff like that, because I played a lot of DDO, and that was something that was really common in DDO. So maybe somebody who hasn't really had as much experience with that might have a tougher time navigating through Amderphade. But I was having a blast. It wasn't super difficult, but it was challenging. It was a good challenge. I did of course fall a couple times, and even relatively short distances, it hurts. Like, it's a lot of falling damage. But when I thought about it though, and I think that's appropriate. I think that's a good thing, because if you think in real life, like if you fall from a distance of like 6, 8, 10 feet, like you might like break your leg or something. Like it's gonna hurt, you know.
Lex falls off a 6-foot ladder. He ain't getting up for a while.
Exactly. Like it felt like, yeah, that especially like when I'm falling onto like hard rock, which that's actually, I didn't even think about that before. That would be kind of cool. Like, what if your falling damage is different depending on what type of surface you land on? That's kind of an interesting thought. So I fall, you know, a moderate distance onto hard rock, and it did a lot of damage, but that only makes you realize, okay, this is something I need to take seriously. Like, this is you know, it's a challenge. It's a challenging game. Like, you're gonna have to execute those jumps, and add to that the zone is pretty disorienting. Like, it's easy to get lost in there, but because I'm kind of a sucker for punishment, that just adds to the fun even more. Even Brad himself got disoriented a few times. It's like, I get lost in here all the time. He's like, we had no idea where we're going. We're running into dead ends and like, you know, going the wrong way. But again, like, it was that sort of thing where if you jump and you're able to latch onto a ledge, you're like, okay, this is probably the way to the top. You know, this is where I should be going. So let's see. So we're kind of like working our way toward the top, and we came across another area that we hadn't seen before. It was kind of like there's some ruins that had even more nasty skeletons in it, but these ones were casters, and they had they like casted a lot of cold spells, which was I don't know. It's always cool, no matter what stage of the game you're in, even if it's not something that nobody's ever seen before, but it's something that you've never seen before. It's always just cool, like, oh, like, you know, what's going on here? You know, just uncovering those more layers of the world, stumbling upon a little, you know, nook, like, oh, I never knew this, you know, I never knew this was here, and trying to figure it out. Man, it was just so much fun.
It would certainly be exciting for you, especially because I'm the first person not associated with the game that figured this place out.
That's what I'm saying. That adds even more to it. I mean, I wasn't really thinking about that like a whole lot at the time, but like I think the same thing applies. Like, even if it wasn't like a world first or anything, like even if it's just something that you yourself have never seen, like it's a really good moment. It's hard to describe, but it's always good stuff to just see that the world is even bigger than you thought it was.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
So yes, so there's those skeletons that were pretty fierce. Like, that's gonna be Amderphade's gonna be a tough zone. I think it's good to have some zones like that are just brutal and just relentless. Like it's hard just to execute the jumps. Like I felt pretty lucky that I made as many of the jumps as I did, because like, you know, you fall, and especially once you get toward the top, if you fall, you're going to die. And then
so did Bad let you always jump first, or did he try and lead the way?
It was a little bit of both. He led for a little bit, but then he was like, "All right, you lead," and I was like, okay, because like
there's also a couple thousand people watching. No pressure.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I totally led him into like so many dead ends and stuff. Like, it's like, oh man, like, yeah. So
it's one of those head rubbing moments. It's like, did I really just do this?
I know.
did I just take? Did I just do a rookie mistake and take Brad absolutely nowhere?
I know. I just like, I take him down the stairs and there's just nothing there. There's nothing to do. I'm like, okay, I guess we gotta go back. Like, but that, it was. I'd say it was awkward, but it wasn't.
Actually, not looking like this. It's actually a pretty nice gesture from Brad. Like, it's like your driving instructor. You take the wheel for a bit. No worries, mate, if you take the wrong turn. All good.
Well, and I think that's a really good point too, because like I feel like actually I should be the one trying to, again, it goes back to figuring it out for myself. I don't want Brad just to hold my hand and lead me on a tour through Amderphade. He wants, it's good for him too from his perspective.
Exactly.
Okay.
See your reaction.
Yeah, like even though I've already seen all the streams and stuff, like that practically went out the window when I'm actually there playing the game. Because I was totally lost, and I think that's good for him to know that, okay, I'm somebody who's never played the game before. Even if you've seen the streams, when you're playing it, this is a zone that's very challenging and very easy to get lost, you know, that sort of thing. So yeah, you get lost, you get disoriented. You know, even if you don't fall and die and have to do a corpse run, and you do get toward the top, then you have to fight these really tough mobs. It's just like, if it's not one thing, it's the other, you know what I mean? Like, it's just,
it won't stop. When does it stop?
It's like, oh my god. And we got aggro off, so who knows how like aggressive these things are gonna be.
And the great thing is, as well, you had Brad there. If you got to that point, it's like, you know, Brad, pull us out of here, man.
It's like, but again, it's important to have zones like that, so that once you spend way more time than I was in there. Like I said, I only played the game total for maybe like 4 hours, but you know, once you actually have it on your own home computer, and we're putting like hundreds and hundreds of hours into it, so just Amderphade alone, once you can master that, like that's gonna be amazing. You know, when you're able to act as a guide to these people that are just completely helpless on their own. You know what I mean? But you can guide them through that zone. That's gonna be good.
On that note, anybody out there looking for server first or anything like that, or game first, this is one thing you will never have. Baz has got 4 hours more playtime that we will never have. Okay? That's a record that he set. If you're looking for that one, too late. Looking for getting into the game the first time, too late.
First time in certain zones, too late.
Yep.
I guess you could say that.
So technically, when the game launches live, server first should be automatically, you know, for some of those areas, you know, up for grabs for you, dude. So anyway,
I mean, I don't know. Again, with the disclaimer that like I was playing a demo version, so it's arguable about like. But yeah, I'll take it.
So next, you got any questions put up there? Any?
I've got a couple questions from chat. Yes, I do.
Oh, actually, before you do that,
yes.
One other thing that I just thought of so when we're getting to the top, and you remember in one of the December stream, it was that you could look over the edge and you see this giant just pit way off in the distance. Like because the draw distance is so far, you can see these things. It's just a massive like crater. Brad pointed that out, and he said that he's pretty sure that is actually going to be an entrance to a second raid zone. So there's going to be 2 raid zones that come out of Amderphade. So we know the first of which being that that bridge that we've seen several times that goes to Kagan's Solitude. That's one raid zone that was confirmed a while ago. But this crater, I think rather than I'm pretty sure he's like, again, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that rather than there being a boss like in the pit itself in Amderphade, that's actually going to be an entrance to a whole nother zone, which is really intriguing. And I asked him, I was like, I remember in the December stream, he said that he didn't even know what was going to be down there because he likes, part of the game to still be a surprise for him. He doesn't like to know every little detail so that when he can play the game himself, there's still things that are mysterious to him and surprising to him. And and he said he still is not really sure 100% what's going to be down there. All that he can say is that it's probably going to be a whole nother zone. So we'll have to see what's up with that.
Cool.
Another thing.
Keep them coming.
It's all coming back to me. Another thing, kind of along those lines, is that so we get to the very top finally, and it was really satisfying. And at the very top, there's that giant spinning like purple rock that we saw in that same December stream. And he was like, so do you know what this giant spinning rock is for? And I was like, no. He's like, neither do I.
That just sounds like a typical Brad answer.
that was a great Brad moment. So like again, he's like, it's another one of those things. There's so much to this
and the way he does it though as well, it's so serious. And then do you know what this rock's for? You're thinking like, there must be something behind it. So, but I don't.
I was thinking, I was trying to like recall all like the lore and stuff. I was like, I'm trying to figure it out. I was almost kind of like embarrassed. I was like, I can't. I don't remember. And he's like, no, I don't know either. So, but he said he's, of course though, I'm sure Justin has something. Yeah, there's something. There's got to be some reason, and we'll have to figure it out. Because I'm sure Stulamay's got something planned for that. So I think that's it. We'll end it on that.
Cool. So Alex, bring in some of those questions for Baz to see what we can get.
Yeah. So from Dayhawk we have, did you experience any quality of life improvements during your experience?
Quality of life improvements.
I'm assuming, to elaborate, and I'm probably just ad-libbing here off of Dave's words, based upon what we've seen from streams, has anything kind of been improved for the player's experience?
One thing, it's hard to remember what, like, everything that we've seen on the streams, but one thing that I definitely noticed that was good to see was how you have total freedom about moving around different aspects of the AI. So you can put, your health where you want it. You can put your target where you want it. You can move around, your spell icons wherever. It's not like EQ99 where it's like a block on the side of the screen. You can't do anything to it. It's like you do have some there's some customizability to it. And again, like I mentioned earlier, also the ability to rebind all the keys, I think, is another important quality of life. So it was enough to, again, be playable. I wasn't constantly like stumbling over myself. It felt very playable. But as far as really like quality of life stuff goes, like kind of I was talking about earlier, that's just one of those things that's just gonna that comes later. They're working on core systems right now. The quality of life will come further down the line.
Okay. From Von Your, sorry if I slaughtered your name. I don't English well. Did you experience anything like arenas or PvP?
No, there wasn't any PvP or anything like that. Again, that's another one of those things that's just gonna come later.
Yeah. Well, we do know for a fact that they're going to have different servers with different rule sets. So any PvP type stuff will probably happen when they're in a more finished state and can kind of like port that stuff over to a PvP server.
And they also mentioned on the at Twitchcon as well about the idea of having arenas and stuff like that for the PvP. So anybody who's interested in PvP, I recommend going back to watching that video from VR from Twitchcon 2017. They elaborate a bit more on the PvP there as well, give you guys a kind of insight of what they have envisioned for later on down the road when they get to that point. So anybody interested in that, go check that video out for sure.
Yeah. The next one from Stratos99. Did you experience the perception system?
I didn't know that. I was kind of talking about that earlier with the quest NPCs that I ran into. I didn't get any perception triggers from them, which kind of surprised me a little bit. I would give it the benefit of the doubt and say that those perception triggers are going to have to come, because that's another part of that handcrafted content where they need to plug those in individually, like as on a quest by quest basis. When I was just watching like the devs play, when I was at the booth, I did catch a glimpse of when Corey was playing. I did see a perception trigger pop up for him. It went away before I could really get a good idea of what it was. I couldn't tell. Maybe it might have been that same example that we had already seen in one of the streams, but I'm not sure. So suffice to say, there are some perception triggers in the game. I didn't personally bump into them because again, that's just one of those things that it's going to take a while before they're all in the game.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that not everything is going to be perception, because that's they already mentioned that perception is something that it's racial, it's class, it's random. So not all of it's going to be, and you already said earlier on as well, with having the multiple choice of dynamic questing, with either going to go craft this wheel or transport the goods to its respected for the receiver. So there's going to be some quests where you'll have that typical / blah blah blah, and off you go. And the perception's meant to be something special. That's why it's why it's worded as perception. It's something that you perceive.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, oh hey, I noticed something.
Mm-hmm.
It's very possible. And to be honest, I don't know. I think I was initially under the impression that every quest would involve some sort of perception, but it may very well be that there are some quests that just don't involve perception, and all you have to do is just go up and hail them and talk to them, and you can just do a quest that way. To be honest, I'm not sure.
I believe there is that same misconception that is quite popular amongst the Pantheon community right now, because when VR was promoting that particular system, it was kind of worded to suggest that we would never have a quest NPC. We would have perception pop-ups to take us to the next step, which might happen to be an NPC. I think it was just probably not worded the best, but
I don't know. Maybe they've kind of changed their plans in between then and now.
Mm-hmm.
That's very possible too.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Because another thing that, again, I'm just going off memory, but another thing when they were really promoting the perception system was that it wasn't linear, and that even if you came across an NPC that was kind of involved in the middle of the quest, you could still pick up the quest there, and you could complete all the different steps in pretty much any order that you wanted. And when I was in Hellnook Caves and came across that that specter. At least I'm pretty sure that it was the same specter that we saw in one of the streams when they were talking about the perception system. You know, that you need. There's like the rewinding. There's the woman in town, and she's crying, and she leads you to the cave, and there's the guy that's outside the cave, and the guy sends you inside the cave, and you meet the specter, and you get the key, etc., etc., and then end up fighting the boss, which, oh, by the way, also did kill that boss. So that was world first.
There you go. Chuck one more up for Baz.
I almost forgot about that. Yeah, that was a fun fight. That was a fun fight too, where the door locks behind you, and the main boss himself is tough, but then you get all those ads too, all those specters that keep coming in, and then the boss himself, who I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name, but anyway, he has a really good example of the atmosphere system. So this is something that I'll clarify this, because I see a lot of people on the forums that are getting confused about the difference between the climate system and the perception system. I know I'm going off like a rabbit trail off of a rabbit trail right now, but so basically the climate system covers a much wider area. So a climate could cover like an entire zone or a large part of a zone, and it's usually weather based. So you got the frigid, scorching, anaerobic, toxic, etc., etc. Those are more like natural things that affect large areas. That compared to the atmosphere system, which atmospheres are usually generated by some sort of magical source, and they cover a much smaller area. And so you go back and watch the stream, you see that the Spectre boss has kind of like a blue circle that pops up around him sometimes, and if you get a notification on your screen that says you start to feel weak, that is an atmosphere, and that's centered around the boss, and it moves with him. And if you're within that radius, it has some sort of negative effect on you. Like in this case, you start to feel weak.
There's a lot of different words that people have been using, like atmosphere, climate, acclimation. I mean, I don't know. I think someone should try to make some effort to straighten that out a little more, because of that. In that particular example, really sounds more like an aura to me. But that's just me.
Maybe I'm speaking too authoritatively on that. I could be wrong.
No. I mean, just in general, not particularly you, but in general. When I talk to people about Pantheon off camera and stuff, there's a lot of mixing up of the terms, and yes. I almost feel like that maybe VR should kind of spend a little bit of time in the next stream to kind of just subtly help define some separation between them.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Yeah. All right. So well, if okay, I can move on.
I was just sorry. Like I said, I was like going a rabbit trail off of a rabbit trail, so now I'm kind of trying to remember. Oh, I remember. So
segues on this show? No.
We don't work like that at all, Baz. No. I mean, come on.
Only every other sentence.
So I came across what I think was the Spectre that was involved in the perception quest that we saw in the stream a while ago. And I was expecting that when I came up to him that I would get some sort of perception trigger, but I didn't. So again, maybe either maybe I misunderstood, or maybe they just changed things where you can't just go up to any NPC that's involved in that quest in any way.
Maybe
them. They'll bring you back to the beginning.
Maybe you didn't have the book, or maybe you didn't accept to become a keeper. Remember?
Touche.
Ah, there we have it.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
You weren't a keeper, Baz.
Duh.
That's it. You're fired.
All right, so who was that? Strat that asked that question? Did I get any perception? No, because I was not a keeper. Forget everything else that I said.
So when you were talking about that quest NPC with the broken wagon, I'm gonna merge these two questions from Vonyer and X Kalane. Sorry if I slaughtered it. Which is basically like, was that NPC attackable, or could you possibly have attacked him and killed him?
Sorry, can you say that one again?
With that wagon NPC, where you wanted to, deliver it or give him a wheel, was there possibly an option to attack him, or were NPCs in general attackable?
To be honest, I didn't even think to try.
Yeah, we're strictly PvE. We don't go around smacking people.
Do you forget who you're on the show with?
It's worth noting though that a lot of people will talk about how when they were like first started playing EQ and you start interacting with like NPCs and you forget to hit enter, and then you start typing something and you hit A and accidentally attack him, and then he smacks you, and it's a rude awakening to EverQuest. You know what I mean?
I have accidentally killed my share of quest NPCs going,
why?
Bleep!
Yeah. So that did not happen, which was good. I can't say for sure if it would have been attackable. I'm pretty sure VR said that it at least guards would be attackable, like if you're if you're an enemy race and you just get enjoyment out of killing other races guards, which I would include myself in that. I find that fun. At least as of a while ago, they did say that would be possible. It was one of those things where I was in the moment. I didn't even think to try. I wasn't trying to like break things or exploit things or anything like that. So I didn't do that, but at least I didn't accidentally attack any, because I'm pretty sure you attack things by melee by like right clicking on them, if I remember correctly. I've
played so many games that I know a few games have done that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure right click starts the auto attack sequence, which seems like it would be a pretty easy mistake to make, but I didn't end up doing that, because Q, obviously in EQ and other games like that, sometimes either the Q button or the A button will start the auto attack, but I'm 99% sure that there might be another hotkey too, but I'm pretty sure I was able to start auto attacking by right clicking on things.
Mm-hmm. We'll just have to wait and see, because that's something I'd turn off.
Yeah, well, again, that's just the default too. You can reassign and all that sorts of stuff.
I usually use the right mouse key when I'm in game, wandering around or waiting for my friends to show up. I'll use the right mouse button to draw a square, just for the sake of it. So that would be a bad thing. That'd be the first thing I turn off. Right mouse button and deactivate. I'll kill everything on sight. Oh.
There were a lot of other controls though that were as I expected them to be. So like zooming in and out is on your mouse scroll. You can scroll from all the way back straight into first person view just with your mouse wheel. And when you are zoomed out in third person mode, you can click and hold the left mouse key to move your camera around to see yourself from different angles, which is so there's lots of good stuff like that too.
Oh.
1 second. There we go. I was answering something in chat because I'm all about the looks, so I had to answer it. It was calling to me. We got another question from Sintro. Was there a day-night cycle? If so, how fast is was the transition, and how dark is night in the current build?
So I do know that the day-night cycle is in the game. They've said that before, that's in the game. I don't think I spent enough time outdoors to really notice it. Like I said, I wasn't in Thronefast for too terribly long, and then other than that, I was like, I was in Hellnook Caves where the day-night cycle doesn't really apply, and Amderphade where it doesn't really apply. And even I was outdoor in South Sail, but I wasn't there for too long either. So suffice to say, if you're running it around in an outdoor zone again in this demo build for 15, 20, 30 minutes or something, it's not like you'll go from broad daylight to the middle of the night in that short period of time. I think it's got to be a little bit longer than that.
I'm assuming EverQuest will be a large amount of influence when it comes to little things like that.
Yeah. Wasn't it though that like in EQ it was like an hour was like a full day? Wasn't that how it was?
I honestly don't remember. It has been a very long time since I've cared.
I don't remember. And I think they've probably changed it too, so I don't remember. 72 minutes.
Yeah, 72 minutes.
So a little bit more than an hour.
That's actually pretty precise. So there you have it.
Yeah, thank you.
I was saying, I still play EverQuest. I have an LED monitor that's got a game mode on it, so I never even notice when it's nighttime anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of a random number too. I wonder how they came up with that. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised though if it's similar in Pantheon to how it was in EQ. And that would seem about right based on how much time I spent actually outdoors.
Yeah. The next question from Sintro. Did you have access to your class's iconic ability? If so, did it feel iconic and special when you were using it?
Short answer is no, but that also reminds me that I don't think I talked about the classes that I played, did I?
Nope,
but you can go right ahead, do it now.
All right, let's go. So, geez, that's important stuff. I can't believe I forgot about that. So the first class that I played was the Shaman. I played an Ogre Shaman, and I found the Shaman to be a lot of fun. It's very versatile. I think the best word that I can describe it, which is I think that will please a lot of Shaman fans. That's kind of what you would expect the Shaman to be able to do. So there was obviously there was damage spells. There were a lot of debuffs to like slow the enemies. There were a lot of party buffs to buff your own party. Pretty good buffs. Again, that's something that I would hope a Shaman would have to like boost your AC or hit points and that sort of thing. It's movement speed. And cures, like being able to cure poison and diseases and that sort of stuff. And then of course you got the wolf pet too, which was a lot of fun. It was like more fun than I was expecting to be able to like throw my wolf in there first, or maybe I run in and then have my wolf come help me like this. So suffice to say, there's always something to do when I was playing the Shaman. It felt very active. Which was really fun. Like it wasn't boring. Like you're not just sitting there just watching the game play itself. It's like you're constantly either trying to do damage or you're trying to heal. That's another obviously important thing that they can do. Either trying to heal yourself or heal your party mates, or trying to debuff the creature, send your pet over anywhere you need to send it. So there was always something to do with the Shaman, which was just really fun. And the other class that I played was the Wizard. Played an Archai Wizard, which for some reason was wielding dual flaming scimitars of Mathara, which is what Eredun they just stuck him on this archive. I was like, all right, cool. So that's obviously, it's obviously something wizards won't be able to do normally. It's dual wield scimitars, but I wasn't complaining because that's something that you can't say every day, that you wield the scimitars that Eredune wields. But anyway, oh well, I did use the GM kill command too, though, just because I could. Because that's another thing. I know that's another thing where like that's probably it's a once in a lifetime sort of thing. I'm not going to be able to do that again, so I had to do it. Anyway, so I played the wizard, and the wizard is very much focused on damage, which again is kind of similar to the EQ. So you start to notice this trend, like, okay, the shaman in Pantheon is mostly similar to the shaman in EQ, and the wizard in Pantheon is mostly similar to the wizard in EQ. So, but the wizard has a lot of elemental spells. So you got ice, you fire, or just pure magic damage. But then you also have spells that decrease your target's resistance to those elements, which is kind of fun. So when you go in and you kind of prime your target by lowering all the resistances, and then you can throw, then you throw all the damage at them, which is a lot of fun. And they have a lot of like AoE spells. They did have a root ability, which the shaman also had root too. And just when I was playing the wizard, it just felt like the two main things that are important when you're playing a wizard is managing your mana and managing aggro. Because the big heavy nukes do take up a lot of mana, and because they do so much damage to it, it's also pretty easy to pull aggro with them. So you don't want to go in and just start laying it on the mobs, because you're gonna pull aggro and you're gonna probably die. And even if you don't die, you're gonna drain your mana bar real fast.
We saw that quite often in one of the past streams.
Yeah. So those are definitely two things that you have to keep in mind. But it makes the class a lot of fun.
Cool. Another one from Dayhawk. What are your thoughts on the character creation screen, like options, etc.?
Yeah. So they kind of slipped a little bit in the live stream that they had on the stage. And to be honest, I haven't had time to really go back and analyze it a whole lot. But it looks like they've got a good amount of options, like for customization, as far as like the size of your nose and the color of your eyes. Like it wasn't like ESO that has like extremely in-depth character customization options. Like, in my opinion, almost like too many. So it's a little less than that, but it's still enough that you can make your character unique. You can make him look how you want it to look. So they keep using the phrase kind of like what you would expect from an MMO these days. It's nothing less and it's nothing more. I think it's average, but I would agree with that from what I've seen of it. But I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. You know what I mean?
I'd have to agree with you. I mean, I've played games like Ark and Rust and stuff, and honestly, it's great that their character creation is so in-depth, but when you get some really, really ridiculous-looking players, I know people find it funny and humorous, and that's great for them, but there are other people out there who value immersion, and that completely just shatters it.
Yep.
The next question from Sintro. What was the coolest item that you looted?
I was waiting for that one to come up.
That I looted. I was gonna say the flaming scimitars of Mathara, but I technically didn't loot those. I was actually, I was really happy though that I was able to upgrade some of my gear while I was just demoing the game, because they stuck me with like a really basic test gear, and that, like I said, like, so a lot of like the combat balance and stuff was not exactly how it will actually be like in the real game, because it's just a demo and they just kind of threw me some gear that wasn't really appropriate for my level. So when I was in South Sail, I don't remember what it was called, but I just from some of the soldiers that were there in South Sail, they dropped some bracers that were an obvious upgrade to the ones that I had been wearing. And so South Sail, it's, if I remember correctly, it's what, that's like a high level 30s ish zone.
I don't remember.
I think.
Yeah, I think it was in its early 30s.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of just occurred to me that the stuff that was dropping from there did have a good amount of stat increases on them. So, and it would be like, +3 stamina, +8 strength, whatever. I'm just kind of making up numbers, but they were in that like 3 to 8 range, because, and this kind of ties into the character creation too, that the stats that you have when you're created are pretty low. Like, I think you start with like roughly like 8 in each stat, and so that means that each individual stat point is going to be important. So you don't have like hundreds and hundreds of each stat where if you upgrade it by like 10, you're not going to know the difference. It's like, I can loot, I can loot these bracers from just a pretty average-ish mob, and there's stats on them. It's not like in EQ where like up until level 30 or whatever, you had no hope of looting anything that had any sort of stat on it. And then when you finally get that like +1 endurance necklace, it's like you feel invincible. So yeah, it was good to see that that there were meaningful stat upgrades on loot. Now, it wasn't like those things were dropping like all the time, but you didn't also have to take down a huge boss to do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The next one is from Svarty. How did you find the movement in the game? As an example, did it feel clunky or floaty?
The movement. So it, at first, to be honest, it felt clunky, but that was because of the default keybinds. So, and I pointed this out to them, that rather than WASD being my movement controls, it was QWES. So everybody look at your keyboard. Yeah. W was forward, Q rotated left, E rotated right, and S moved backwards. And then A and D strafed left and strafed right. And I told Albert, I was like, I haven't played a game where that's the case. So I was like, it feels like
that is weird.
A should rotate left, D should rotate right, Q and E should strafe left and right. So that's how it was when I sat down to play, which obviously felt weird at first, but then I reassigned them.
Maybe somebody thought that would be a cool joke. You never know.
I don't know.
That also comes down to preference. I mean, my wife, who's also a pretty avid gamer, she uses A, S, D, and F for movement.
Oh, that's weird. And yeah, it's totally, and actually, going back to the old days of like Quake and stuff and these like first person shooters and stuff, they would use ESDF as movement. Which I have nothing wrong with that. It's just moved one key over. It might be a little bit more comfortable. Again, it's all personal preference. Like it can be whatever. If you want to use T, J, Z, and P as your movement keys, you could. Like it's good even in pre-alpha. You can already customize that sort of stuff.
Which is nice. I've personally been in some pre-alpha / alpha testing for games where they didn't have any key binding systems in place yet, and it made the game terrible.
Yeah. So once I got used to the movement, to answer your question, yes, it did feel very fluid. The animations were responsive. It just felt good, and that was most evident in Amderphade, when you're jumping over these huge chasms, and if you don't land where you're hoping to land, you're gonna fall a long way. Yeah, so I think that was really the best test of whether the movement feels like it should, is that I'm making these jumps and I'm jumping as high as I would expect my character to jump. I'm jumping as far as I would expect my character to jump. I can move nimbly around really like tight corners and tight ledges and that sort of stuff without falling. So yeah, the movement felt really good.
Cool.
Good. Another one from Dayhawk. Was there any weapon swap mechanics?
Not that I noticed. Although I'm pretty sure I heard Everos on the forums. He was kind of I was glad that he was kind of breaking down the live stream that they did recently, because I just have not had time. It's crazy to think that I've been home for like a week. Like a week ago, I was still at Twitchcon, and this entire week's been crazy. So I haven't really had time to really sit down and analyze that stream. But I'm pretty sure Evo said that he did notice something that was brought up real quickly on one of the screens that seemed to suggest like there would be gear swap mechanics. So I think so. I just didn't notice that when I was playing.
Yeah, I think I do recall something of that nature, but I mean, not even in pre-alpha yet. That could have just been a case of, hey, let's see how this works.
Yeah, and a lot of testing is just that. You know what I mean? They'll put in some mechanic just to see how it goes, just to see how people like it. If it works, if it doesn't work, and they might rip it out later. It's all very tentative.
It may feel great when it's in the game, and it may stay up until beta, to where something else gets added that kind of makes it either obsolete or just not feel right, or it could come in and feel right but make something else feel wrong. I mean, it's just the whole spectrum, which is why you can't look at a game that's currently in development or even in any sort of alpha testing and expect that what you see is what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
The final question is actually my own.
Okay.
What kind of experiences did you have with mobs and the disposition system?
So I did notice a little bit of the alarmist disposition when we were in South Sail, which we've seen before. I think one of the nice things about the disposition system is that I could have experienced dispositions and not even known it. Nobody really, it wasn't like Brad was, telling me, oh, this mob up here has this disposition and this is what we need to do. You know what I mean? It was like the mobs were just kind of just doing their thing, and maybe I did encounter some disposition, you know, if they were doing something strange and I didn't know why. I didn't really have enough time to really, you know, dissect it and try to figure out, okay, when I do this, they do this, etc., etc. It's gonna take a lot more time and you know, a lot more testing to figure out what these dispositions are and what makes these mobs tick. You know what I mean?
Cool. So before we get to the final part, a few announcements. As some of you might know, we're technically still on break. Our first our first official show back will be on the 9th of November, where we will sit down and talk about the halflings that we saw in the newsletter and what we noticed. We'll talk about the concept art, this, that, and the other. And you have exactly, let me check, until Tuesday the 2nd of November, 4 PM. I don't think we added a time to our contest when it ends, did we? Or did we not?
Yes, we did. Yes,
Well,
we did.
I think it's 4 PM Eastern to enter our giveaway that we have going. I will link the details, or the link where you can find all the details to that in Twitch chat for you now. So check that out. And yes, Tuesday is the 2nd of November. Where? Thursday, sorry. Thursday the 2nd of November.
You need to check that again.
Thursday the 2nd of November. I correct myself. Thank you. the missus pointed that out. And so, Baz, what can we expect from you going forward? Tell us where people can reach you, contact you, and what we can expect to see from you in the future.
Yeah. I mean, if you ask me, it's a really exciting time to be a fan of Pantheon and to be following the game. You know, because there's a lot going on. So I'm definitely gonna be putting out more videos, like you mentioned, the vlogs that I just recently put up on YouTube. I'll be putting up some more stuff in the near future, kind of ramping things up as we get closer and closer to launch. I can't promise that I'm going to be like putting out a new video every day or anything like that, but we got a few things coming down the pipeline, including dev interviews, which I had mentioned in one of my vlogs, because I actually did a full interview with Corey Lefevre when I was at Twitchcon. But it turns out that convention centers aren't a really good setting to do interviews, because we just kept getting interrupted and stuff. But fortunately, Corey and a few other devs who I won't mention yet told me that they're totally willing to just let me pick their brains via Skype pretty much anytime. So that's at the top of my priority list right now. I can't say exactly when those will come out, but it'll certainly be sometime before pre-alpha. I'll just say that much. Soon, TM. And soonish. Like I said, it's at the top of my priority list right now. I've also got a few other cool ideas that I'm excited about. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on my YouTube channel, which is Bazgrim TV. Hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of that's going to be coming out. And of course, I will be streaming Pantheon either next year with the streamer program, or just starting on launch day, twitch.tv/BazgrimTV. So head over there and give me a follow if you don't mind, so you don't miss out on that either. I'm also on pretty much all the social media: Twitter at Bazgrim TV, Facebook Bazgrim TV, Instagram Bazgrim TV, pretty much Bazgrim TV anywhere. So yeah, so if you guys are interested, because I'm gonna be following the game really closely as I will continue to do that. So if you're interested in that, you can come along with me.
Nice. Yeah, so that about wraps up the show. A lot of information. Thanks for doing this with us, Baz. Always a pleasure having you on.
Yeah.
Maybe sometime we'll come visit you. Who knows?
Great.
So with that, guys, that's hopefully the VOT shows during our break.
Don't say break to me. You're not allowed to say break. I have worked more for the VOT this past week than I have in the last 6 months.
And we will see you all on the 9th for our regular show. So, next. With that, guys, have a great night, and thanks for joining us and hanging out. We'll see you all on the 9th.
We'll see.
Take care.
Everybody.